Welcome back to BCB Live, and here he is, the well-known, the well-renowned Rodney Moeller. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Good morning, guys.
Hey, it is great to see you this morning, and welcome to the show. Welcome to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Hey, listen, we have a great opportunity to have you here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, what you do, and we'll go from there.
All right. Like I said, my name is Rodney Miller, and happy to be here this morning. I'm previously just retired this last March from the Austin Police Department after 29 years, and most of my career I was in the license weight unit as an inspector. Latter part of my years, I was the sergeant coordinator of the unit. Retired. Loved the trucking safety industry and wanted to stay in it. Retired fairly young. I know the gray hair doesn't show it, but a buddy of mine with DPS got me this gig with Waterloo and Lumber Insurance as their safety consultant. So I'm happy they're a great organization, and they specialize in smaller operations. A few trucks to 25 trucks, and I guess that's their specialty niche. And these companies aren't big enough to have a full-size safety personnel on board, and so they all have multiple hats, and that's where we come in. As new clients, my services are used, and go in and do a mock audit just so I can get a good pulse of their operation. And I'm part of their insurance. I have nothing to do with the insurance. I'm just their safety consultant part, but I go in and do this mock audit, and not just hey, I found this, ha ha ha. I'm part of your insurance group. I'm gonna not just point out where you're not compliant, what we're gonna do to get your steps in to get you compliant. And then I do driver training. It's just I love what I do.
That's awesome. And as you talk about it, it's important that you have these huge trucking companies that have these huge staffs that also have these multiple safety personnel involved, and they have all these roles in which they can play this important part. But yeah, you talk about the 5-truck company. I got 5 trucks, and not only am I the owner and the dispatcher, I'm also, and now I'm also the safety guy, right? I'm a little bit of everything, and the payroll guy, and it all happens like that and then all of a sudden you get to 10, and then here we are. And Rodney, what is it that really is when you go into these trucking companies that they need the most after you do these mock audits?
Well, when I go in, I meet with the executive teams and, talk about just the industry with the lawsuits and this and that, and just showing them just if they go to the safer, just if anybody can, have the name of the company or the DOT number, they can type that in and get just a snapshot of their safety operations. And people are just floored just of that information. At first, when I started this, I was a little shocked, but now I'm not shocked anymore. But you go into these operations; they're great operations. They want to do safe. They're doing this, but they've got everything going on, and I'm a fresh set of eyes, so to speak, coming in, looking at their operations. And you've got these multi-million-dollar operations, and they don't have driver qualification files. They sometimes may have a drug program, but it's not implemented fully. They don't have a safety policy. And like I said, these are professional organizations. They really want to do the right thing, but time and time again, I hear, I wish there was a playbook. There's no playbook, for us to do the right thing. We want to do the right thing, but so they're happy for me to come in and kind of fill that void, so to speak.
What's Rodney? They call me Buckle Up Bob. I'm the safety director here with BCB, and we did exactly what you suggested. And I had zero doubt that we were doing a lot of really good things, but it was really nice to come in and see where we needed to clean up. What is the number one violation, I guess, if you will, that you see carriers when you come in? It's like seems to be at every carrier that they have to address right away. Was it the files you just mentioned, or is there an area? I know from our DOT score, vehicle maintenance, it seems to be the hardest for every carrier.
It's a little bit of both. I mean, it's driver qualification files, it's the drug programs, it's your mechanical, mechanic files. Time and time again, I guess the most common, is the driver qualification files. I go in and say, "Can I see your driver files?" They hand me one folder, everything. So and the best thing I can tell everybody right now is just go to FMCSA's website and look at the driver qualification file checklist. Right there is exactly, and print this out, save this. This is exactly what you should have in a driver qualification file. Treat this like the Bible. If any document is not on this form, it goes in their personnel folder. And so driver qualification or DQ folders need to be labeled exactly that, kept in a cabinet, displayed driver qualification files, and secured. And then a personnel folder needs to be, somewhere else. And that the file cabinets like that is, Joe's not here today. They have a court order to get a DQ folder on John Q. Public. You don't want them to get something else. You want them, okay, that's the driver qualification folder, and grab that.
Do you and I as we talk about it, and I know you do it every day, but can you tell us anything like anytime you've gone in and directly impacted a company as it applies to this safety audit? You go in and you do the safety audit, and you go in and you attack it, and then after that, just can you tell us anything like that?
Well, I mean, I take it as a success story when I can go into an operation and they've got a good ratings and all that, but you go in and they don't have their driver qualification files, buttoning up their drug programs, streamlining their maintenance records and this and that. And if I can get that, steam rolling ahead, I take pride in that, and I like that. I think the importance of everybody, whether you use my services or use another services, to do this and act on our recommendations. I tell every client, I'm going to tell you my best legal advice on a lot of things. You can listen to me or you cannot. I recently had a client, fairly new. I pointed out everything on their audit, a lot of things they were not compliant. Didn't really act on my recommendations in a timely manner, and now are under a federal compliance review. So looking at some pretty good fines and safety rating reductions and new implementations. So I want to get everybody in compliance and get everything. Heaven forbid, your something triggers a compliance review, or the luck of the draw, you get a random.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
Rodney, one of the things we see a lot of these nuclear verdicts, and with your insurance, how does the audits and you mentioned the company that didn't really follow up on your suggestions in these accidents? How does that play out into their, or does it?
Well, I mean, with this, HB 19 here in Texas, it's the first tort reform. If you're butting up those 8 items, this lawsuit over that crash can only be about that crash and not go into your safety policies and all that. And that's where all these nuclear verdicts are coming from. But, if you don't have a safety policy, if you don't have this, whether or not it goes in that trial, another lawsuit, you have a forklift operator that runs over a customer's foot or something. I mean, that's where your safety policies, all that stuff that you may not be buttoned up, it will be highlighted on instances like that.
You spoke of a playbook. When are you writing the playbook for getting this going? Because I think, and don't you think we should? And if anybody should write it, Rodney, shouldn't it be you or somebody like you to create this playbook for companies out there. I truly believe that it would be very helpful if we had something out there, and I truly believe somebody like you should write that or create a playbook, right?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. It just, and I see that. I guess that's the surprise, coming from the law enforcement side to the civil side, is, you know, it's great people. They have great operations. They really want to do the right thing. They just don't know how to do this and how to, so that's where, I mean, I'm really, really happy to fill that void, so to speak, and get them in compliance so that way, paperwork-wise, they're okay, but then to do driver training, available, all the time for questions, and I just love it.
You had and you talk about, and I know you a long-standing career as an officer, and thank you for your service in that regard. My question is, as you've moved from enforcement more now to consulting, right? I mean, that truly, what was the biggest, where are you? What was the biggest surprise? Did you have a genuine surprise or anything like that as you moved from enforcement to that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you're walking into these really nice people. I mean, they've got a great organization, this and that, and they have no safety policy. They don't have driver qualification policy. They don't have this and that, and it's shocking that as of to now, nothing tragic, thank God, has happened that highlights that you don't have this. And I see that time and time again going into clients, and I guess if anything, that's the biggest shock.
We talk about it, and Bob, and we've sat here and I've listened to this conversation, and to me, it seems to me, you need to have a safety audit. You need to have some kind of audit done at some point to find these issues if you haven't had them, right? You would recommend a safety audit, right, Rodney, at any time at some point if you've never had one, right, to fill in these gaps?
Right. I mean, that's what, Waterloo and Lumber Insurance, they specialize in these smaller companies, but whether you use my services or somebody else, I highly recommend that. It's, we're an outside looking in, and you're doing everything, you're really not, I'm not going to say you're not paying attention, but you're busy doing everything else. You may not just look at something that maybe, outside looking in that we can point out.
And if somebody needs to or gets to hold, how can they reach out to you, Rodney, to do that, or how can they reach out to your group to get that information to do this, to get in and get involved in, or ask for or that kind of stuff? Can they do that? Can they reach out to you?
Yeah, they can reach out to me. They can reach out to Waterloo Insurance or Lumber Insurance Services directly. But if they get a hold of me, I can talk to them. I can get you in touch with an agent. Like I said, we'd be happy to work with you. But I think the bottom line is, like you said, is just whether you use my services or somebody else's, just please reach out to somebody. Get a mock audit or compliance review done. Get somebody in to really do the driver trainings. I do when I do proper pre-trip, I teach what most common roadside inspection is a level 2 inspection. So I teach drivers, this will be your pre-trip, post-trip is a level 2. So I show them exactly what roadside is look for, and now that's what they're going to look for when they do their pre-trip. And I stick with this number. You're going to find 80% of what we found roadside. Now you're going to find that in the yard. That's where we want it to be found.
Oh, and when you do these trainings and you come out and you do these trainings, Rodney, how is the feedback from the driver? I'm just curious. How you know what? The driver's been driving for 20 years. When you go out there and you talk to him, how's that genuine feedback?
It's been pretty positive. I'm not wearing a uniform anymore, so I guess they can look at me as a civilian, so they're not threatened or anything. But no, I mean they know my past, so they've asked questions related to the law enforcement and the interaction on a stop, on inspection, and really good questions. I mean that's a lot of my time. The the training is, the length, and then, however I'll stick around, however long questions are. I have, and that's part of my services. If later on, if they have a question or a roadside inspection, that company can always reach out to me, and we'll get it whatever resolved, or if I can help them with the situation.
I also, as long as you're standing there and you're not wearing a gun, I think the conversation goes a whole lot different than if you were standing there wearing a gun. I mean, for me, I'm a little more relaxed if you and I are standing out there by the truck talking about the truck.
And he can't shoot you.
Yeah, or when you're standing there with a gun talking to me about my truck. There's a whole different feel. Don't you agree?
Yeah, no, I mean, I like I said, I had a job to do, and when I supervised the guys, we had a job to do on truck inspection, and we're all about safety. We're not about revenue and all that. Now I have a different hat. Now I look at the other half. Now I look at the office settings and all that stuff that we didn't do in the law enforcement setting.
One of the things is, I know it changed for me as I get more involved from the safety side, after 20 years. When you switched, did you see anything that you changed kind of your opinion from when you were an officer to now? And is there anything that you think that in the from the federal motor carrier side needs to be reformed on the inspections, or maybe even the audits out there, the roadside inspections?
Wow, that's a loaded question. What could be changed with FMCSA? That's for a different show, and it's going to take a lot longer.
All right, we appreciate that. Hey, Rodney, real quick, I do want to ask you, if you would, could you go ahead and give us maybe your email address if somebody wanted to just reach out and ask you a couple of questions? I always want to make sure they have access to our guests if possible, so that maybe you might direct them in the right direction.
Sure, it's RMOELLER. What?
That's okay. I didn't want to stump you on your email.
It's only been almost a year since I've worked for him. You think I would know?
But anyway, yeah, if you can.
Okay, yeah, it's RMOELLER at Waterloo _hyphen INS.com.
Got it. R. Moeller at Waterloo INS.com. Is that correct?
It.
All right. And anybody can feel free to call you. I mean, send you an email. Maybe you can point them in the right direction as if they might need it. Because we have even the owner, the independent contractor needs to worry and needs to think about these things that you discuss each and every day. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the time. Like I said, I know Waterloo and Lumber, they specialize in smaller companies, and I know they can be competitive. Like I said, I'm not in an insurance group. I know nothing about. I'm learning a little bit more about the insurance side.
Right.
But like everything I do, the driver training, whether we create the safety policies and all that, everything I do, the underwriters get a copy of it. And so when it comes to renewal time, I know we use that as, a little bit to hopefully help things. It can't hurt.
Well, I'll tell you what, we look forward to the R. Moeller playbook on audits. So we look forward to that coming out soon, right, Bob? So that everybody will have a guide and you'll lead the industry in that. We do look forward to that. Hey, before you go, we ask you one thing before every guest gets off of the show. We ask that you say your name and then BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
Rodney Moeller, BCB, the live safest in the area.
All right, you got it. Thanks, Rodney. We appreciate it, and we will call you again soon. Thanks a lot, man. Interesting stuff going in and doing that and making that happen. Guys are out there helping carriers become better carriers, and you know what? If anybody does it, I guess these guys out here, these former DOT officers, know the rules.